Hey, my name's Remy, and today I want to talk about something that nearly broke my marriage, but also changed the way I see relationships forever. My wife, Ivy, and I have been married for several years. Like most couples, we've had our ups and downs, but over time I started noticing a pattern, one that I wish I had recognized sooner. Every time Ivy didn't get her way, she would shut down emotionally. She wouldn't argue, she wouldn't explain, and she definitely wouldn't say what was bothering her outright. Instead, she had a different method. She'd withhold intimacy. At first, I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was just a mood thing, or maybe that she needed space. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized that it wasn't random. It was calculated. If I said no to something she wanted, whether it was a favor, a decision, or even a simple disagreement, she suddenly wasn't in the mood. And it wasn't just physical intimacy. She'd act distant, uninterested, and cold. At first, I gave in. Who wants to deal with that kind of tension in their own home? I tried to fix things, reassure her, and sometimes even change my mind just to get things back to normal. And guess what? It worked every single time. The moment she got what she wanted, she'd be affectionate again, as if nothing had ever happened. Looking back, I can see exactly what was happening. Ivy had learned that she could control the situation without raising her voice, without arguing, and without even asking twice. All she had to do was make me feel like I was losing her. And for a long time, I played right into it. I let myself believe that if I just gave her what she wanted, we'd be happy. But this time was different. I finally reached a point where I realized something. I was being conditioned to feel like I had to earn my wife's love. And I wasn't going to play that game anymore. The last straw came over a designer bag. Ivy had been talking about this limited edition, overpriced bag for weeks. In her mind, it was an absolute necessity, not just a want. One evening, she brought it up again. We were sitting in the living room, and she showed me the bag on her phone for what felt like the 100th time. "Babe, my birthday is coming up. This is the one I want." Her voice wasn't excited or hopeful. It was firm, like she was locking in a deal. I glanced at the price. It wasn't impossible, but it also wasn't the kind of money I could just throw around without thinking. "Ivy, I know you really want it, and I'll get it for you, just not right now," I told her, keeping my tone neutral. I figured it was a reasonable response. I wasn't saying no, I was just saying not yet. But to Ivy, not yet was the same as never. Her expression changed instantly. She let out a dramatic sigh and tossed her phone onto the couch. Then came the silent treatment. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, calculating how she was going to punish me for not immediately giving her what she wanted. Then she finally snapped. "You're saying, not now, like that actually means something." I shrugged, keeping my cool. "Soon, Ivy. I just need to handle a few other things first." That wasn't enough for her. "Forget it," she muttered, getting up and walking to the bedroom. I sat there for a while, staring at the blank TV screen, wondering when we reached this point. When every conversation became a battle, when compromise turned into control. I didn't think much of it at that moment, but looking back, that was the first sign of what was coming. That night, after my usual routine, I slid into bed beside her. Normally, I'd put an arm around her or pull her close. Nothing major, just a simple, natural thing that couples do. But the second my arm touched her, she pulled away. "Don't," she said flatly. I blinked, confused. "What?" "I'm not in the mood for anything," she clarified, as if I had just made some inappropriate move. I hadn't even initiated anything beyond a simple touch. This was a calculated response. This was punishment. "I just wanted to hold you," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Well, I don't want you holding me," she replied without even looking at me. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling something shift inside me. I had seen this pattern before. Every time I didn't fold to her demands, she withdrew affection. Every disagreement led to cold shoulders, silent treatments, and now outright rejection. And every time, I had been the one to apologize, to smooth things over so we could go back to normal. But this time, I wasn't going to pretend I didn't see it for what it was. I wasn't going to beg for affection like a child who misbehaved. This was intentional. And for the first time, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to play this game anymore. Instead of wasting my energy trying to get her attention, I turned that energy toward myself. In the days that followed, I started filling my time with things I had once enjoyed, but had let go of. The guitar that had been collecting dust in the corner? I picked it up again. The books I had abandoned halfway through? I started reading them. I even got back into working out. Not because I wanted to impress Ivy, but because it felt good to do something for myself. If she didn't want to talk to me, fine. If she didn't want to be around me, fine. I wasn't going to chase her. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to make things right. I was just letting things be. The shift happened naturally. I was done putting all my attention on someone who only gave me the bare minimum when it suited her. So when her friends came around, I didn't hold back. I was the same charming, funny, engaging person I had always been. But now, I wasn't reserving that energy just for Ivy. When her friends visited, I made sure to be involved in the conversation instead of sitting in the background like I used to. If one of them got a new haircut, I noticed and complimented them. If someone cracked a joke, I laughed and added to the fun. I made eye contact. I listened when they spoke, nodding, reacting, asking follow-up questions. And you know what? They responded. They laughed at my jokes. They started conversations with me. They genuinely enjoyed my company. At social gatherings, I stopped hovering around Ivy. Instead, I became the center of attention in my own right. I wasn't overdoing it. I was present. I made sure people felt heard and appreciated, and in turn, they gravitated toward me. And Ivy noticed. She wasn't used to seeing me like this. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't chasing after her. I wasn't looking for approval, waiting to be let back into her good graces, or playing the game she had unknowingly trained me to play. I was simply being myself, and suddenly, that version of me was in high demand. Ivy had always been confident in her ability to control the situation. She probably assumed I was just waiting for her to decide when I was worthy of affection again. But when she saw me effortlessly connecting with her friends, engaging, laughing, holding my own in conversations, something shifted. At first, she wasn't too concerned. But then, her friends started noticing me in a way they hadn't before. They lingered, pulled me into conversations, even reached out directly instead of going through her like they used to. And that, more than anything, caught Ivy off guard. One evening, at a small gathering, Jessica, a friend Ivy had known for years, laughed a little too hard at one of my jokes, playfully touching my arm. It was harmless, but Ivy tensed. When another friend, Melanie, grinned and teased, "How come your husband is so much fun? I feel like I don't even know this side of him." She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was paying close attention. And then Vanessa jokingly nudged her. "Girl, if you ever get tired of him, send him my way." Ivy didn't laugh. Over the next few days, she became more observant. I'd catch her watching me at social events, her eyes scanning my interactions, analyzing every smile, every laugh, every casual touch. One night, I walked into our bedroom to find her sitting on the edge of the bed, my phone in her hands. She hadn't even heard me come in. When she finally realized I was there, she quickly set it down, pretending she hadn't just been going through it. The funny part? There was nothing to find. I hadn't done anything wrong. But the fact that she even felt the need to check told me everything I needed to know. She was losing her grip, and she knew it. Her frustration only grew from there. The more she searched for something suspicious, the more it ate at her that she couldn't find anything. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't sneaking around. I had simply stopped playing by her rules. Then, one evening, I came home from work to find her dressed differently. No oversized t-shirt, no sweatpants. Instead, she wore a fitted dress that hugged her in all the right places, her hair neatly styled, her makeup subtly done. She wasn't going anywhere, she was just home. But it was clear she wanted to be seen. Then came the conversations. Out of nowhere, she started making an effort to talk to me again. Asking about my day. Laughing at things she used to ignore. Throwing in compliments. "You've been looking really good lately," she said once while setting the dinner table. I just nodded, thanked her, and kept my response casual. Before, I would have taken that as an invitation to get close again. Not this time. I knew what was happening. She was testing the waters, seeing if I'd take the bait and fall back into our old cycle, where she dictated when I got attention and when I didn't. Then, something unexpected. She started cooking my favorite meals. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. But after the third time in a week, it was obvious. Ivy wasn't the type to suddenly become a doting wife for no reason. In the past, she only did things like this when she wanted something in return. But I wasn't biting. I still talked to her. I still sat at the dinner table. I still responded when she spoke. But I wasn't desperate for her affection anymore. And for the first time, she was the one feeling uncertain. One day, I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone, when she walked in and stood in front of me. I miss how things used to be, she said, her voice quiet but heavy with meaning. I put my phone down and looked up at her, waiting. She took a breath, her fingers fidgeting. I feel like we're distant. Still, I said nothing. I wanted to see where she was going with this. Finally, she sat down beside me, her shoulders tense. Can we talk? That was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The moment she finally acknowledged what had been happening, that she had played a game for too long and lost control of it. I wasn't going to rub it in her face. I just needed to be honest. I sighed, leaning forward. I love you, Ivy, I said, my voice calm and steady. But I'm done playing games. She looked at me, her expression unreadable, but I could tell she was listening, really listening. If you want affection, it has to be real, I continued. Not something you hand out when you get what you want. That's not love. That's control. And I'm not doing that anymore. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. Instead, she lowered her eyes, her fingers twisting together in her lap. This marriage isn't about control, I said, my tone softer now but still firm. If we want to be happy together, we both have to stop treating each other like opponents. I'm not your competition, Ivy. I never was. Silence filled the room. For the first time in a long time, we weren't maneuvering around each other. We weren't waiting for the next move. We were just two people facing the truth. She exhaled slowly, like she had been holding her breath for days. I hear you, she whispered. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. I started noticing the changes in small ways. She asked about my day, not out of obligation, but because she genuinely wanted to know. She stopped rolling her eyes when I said no and actually considered my answer. She didn't use intimacy as a tool anymore. She didn't push me away when she didn't get her way. She finally understood. Our relationship wasn't about control. It was about partnership. But the biggest shift wasn't in her. It was in me. I had learned to value myself, to recognize that I deserved a marriage where I didn't have to beg for basic love and respect. I had never wanted to leave Ivy. I loved her, but I refused to be manipulated again. And because I had drawn that line and refused to step back over it, our marriage actually became better. Not perfect, no relationship is, but real. No more games. No more punishments. Just two people who had finally learned how to love each other the right way. Standing up for myself was the best decision I ever made. Now, I'm not saying this is a one-size-fits-all solution. Every relationship is different. But if you're in a situation where someone holds affection over your head like a reward, ask yourself, is this really love? Or is it control? Because the truth is, if someone truly loves you, they won't treat intimacy like a paycheck you only get if you behave the way they want. What do you think? Have you ever been in a situation like this? Would you have handled it differently? Let's talk in the comments.